Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Raw and Unfiltered. Let me introduce you to my guest today. Actually, let's give it a quick second, simply because we're waiting for more people to join us. So do me a favor, as you all know, hit those hearts. According to Malcolm Nance, it helps the algorithm. Did you know that, Brian?
I had no idea. I'm not an algorithm guy, but Malcolm knows his algorithms.
Well, he is the spy. And then that little square with the up arrow, please share this, because this is going to be one extremely, extremely important episode. I'm going to take some questions from each of you as well. So let me introduce you to my friend here, my guest, Brian Karem. Brian is a 30 plus year veteran of White House correspondence. He's worked for, I don't know, everyone from Playboy to
People,
People magazine to keep going.
Fox News. Let's see, Rolling Stone. I've written for. You name it, I've pretty much written for him. From local to regional to nationals, all there.
So let me be very clear about
And Salon right now. That I got to
and the
plug the
salon.
current guy.
Amen to that. So let me explain to you my relationship with Brian, so that many of you will get.
There were no reach arounds involved. We just love each other platonically.
There you go. Okay. So, groovy.
I'm telling you.
So here's the scenario. When I was writing my book, Revenge, I was having an incredibly difficult time. No, it wasn't incredibly difficult. An impossible time in getting anybody to speak to me. They all feared me. Judges wouldn't talk to me. Prosecutors wouldn't talk to me. FBI agents wouldn't talk to me. And so I reached out to Brian, who I've known probably for more than a decade at the time. And I said to him, I need your help. And he said, sure. What do you need? I need your contacts. He said, okay. I said, but not me speaking to them. I need you, because I want an independent third party to provide me with the information so that I could write the book Revenge and ensure not just its accuracy, but its truthfulness. Because everybody who reads a book knows when something is bullshit, right? I mean, it's so obvious to the reader. And any time that you have a good book, you know that you're open, you're raw, as we are. You are, you become, uh, what's the way? You become vulnerable, right, in your writing, because you have to speak truth.
Always.
Okay? And so, wow, your future's so bright, you got to wear shades.
Shades, there you go. You got it.
So, please, guys, do me a big favor. This is extremely, extremely important episode, and I'm going to explain in a second, in another second, why. So please keep smashing that heart. Please share this with as many people as you can. And so Brian, over the course of about 6 months, met with, you know what? I don't want to put words into his mouth. Of course, I know the answer. I'd rather you hear it from him, Brian J. Karem. And by the way, everybody, if you follow me, that very top Chiron, do me a favor, click onto it, follow Brian. If you're a Brian follower and you want to get some real info, follow me. You know, Brian, 6 months, tell the story.
Well, I mean, the story was at first merely trying to get information out of the government that's public information. And we ran into a variety of problems. First, to get freedom of information requests answered by the government in a timely fashion is a difficult proposition at best, because they are an understaffed department. The bigger problem with you was they flat out lied about having information. We asked for information. You had a document in your hand, or 3 or 4 documents in your hand. Yeah, 4 of them that they claimed didn't exist. And so when I asked for information or wrote them and asked them to provide information that we knew well that they had, they denied they had it. Then when we provided them the information that, well, wait a minute, it's kind of funny that you say you don't have it, because here we are with some of the documents, and then they came out with hundreds of thousands that they said that,
486,000.
that they would release at 500 a month, I guess, until the time. I mean, your grandsons and your
That would be
granddaughters.
90 years.
Yeah, so it would be going on well past my date of expiration as well as yours, and they still haven't provided it. We sued them. We used one of the best attorneys for FOIA representation in the country, Mark Zaid, and Mark sued them on our behalf, and we still have gotten, 5 years later, zero from them. Absolutely nothing. So it's not only that the government is understaffed when it comes to FOIA representation, which it is. It's that in many cases, even with the permission of the person involved in, and again, Michael, you provided me a letter saying, yes, I want this
Yeah,
information
I
released.
signed the authorization,
Yes.
which
So
granted them the right because Mark Zaid was representing Brian, who, again, I trust emphatically. I just want you for a second to concentrate on your conversations with FBI agents, with folks that were in the first administration that spoke to you on the basis of anonymity. In fact, I want to be very clear about something. I actually asked Brian, well, who'd you speak to? And he said to me, as much as you are my brother, and I appreciate helping you on this, because the more I dig into it, the more nauseous I am becoming. I can't tell you. I won't do that. And I
yeah.
respected that. I tried to get it out of him anyway, but it didn't work. In fact, I got him fucking drunk. I mean, I don't drink. I'll have one drink a whole night. Brian can drink. And let me tell you, we got him fucking drunk, and I almost got him, but he clammed up. He knew what he was doing, by the way. All right. Just so you know,
Especially
he
when it
knew
comes
what he
to
was doing.
drinking. Well, look, I
Tell
went to I
tell our
went to jail.
viewers.
Oh, yeah, I went to jail 4 times to keep a confidential source, so I keep my sources confidential. It's the only way you can operate. As far as drinking goes, oh, yeah, we can drink all day long. That'll be fun.
And let me put it to you this way, Brian actually liked prison.
Yeah, well, you either give or receive, and I'm a giver.
Yeah.
So, oh, tough room, tough room. So,
I tell you, there's no respect. No respect. I
so
do you a favor, and this is the thanks I get.
oh, and I was an ugly child too, you know. Hey, how you doing? Oh, so the bottom line was a lot of my sources were saying what we already knew. That it was an abomination what was going on. That it was they were trying to use you as leverage to go after Trump. They
Whoa,
didn't.
whoa, 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 whoa! Can you say that again and
They were
say it
trying to.
slower?
Yeah, they were trying to use you as leverage to go after Trump. In some
Huh.
cases, it was felt as if the charges against you, they thought you were gonna be far worse and know far more than you did, because, you were the guardian of the galaxy for Donald for many years, so they thought not only you knew where all the bodies were buried, but you'd have to cough them up. And the fact of the matter was, as we found out in the process of our investigation, they pretty much knew what was going on with you from the get-go and tried to make more out of it than what it was. And they thought they could pry information out of you that look, if you held on to it, you held on to it to the point where no one can find it. But the point is they didn't have the information and couldn't find information that they thought they had on you. So there were people inside the Department of Justice who were telling me the questions to ask, the people to search to try and get it out of. But the fact was, is they were actually at one point in time surprised that they couldn't get more out of you than they did, and that was for them very alarming and
Frustrating.
frustrating, because they wanted Donnie. And they had their my feeling is if you're guilty of a crime, you face it and let the chips fall where they may. I'm not into inventing things against people. That's not what justice is supposed to be about. But in many cases, we see that there is that tinge to it. The Democrats and Republicans both fail on this, but the DOJ, their biggest thing is their track record. They will take stuff to court and force you into many times they don't even go into court. They get you to sign, seal, and deliver your fate, as in your case, getting you to sign off on something and putting you in prison, and not actually go into court. Many of their cases are solved and adjudicated outside of the court system. So that's exactly what they did with you.
Well, do me a favor. Converge in on, at the very beginning of the book, we talk about the Steele dossier, describing it as a piece of shit, worthless document that completely missed the mark as it relates to me on the 11 allegations that it
Oh, you
claims.
mean like you having you being involved with Putin and and your wife is Ukrainian and not Russian and all. Look, the Steele dossier had, it's kind of like what they say about a bullshitter. There's a nugget of truth in it, but it's elaborated 300 or 400% from there, and that's what the Steele dossier was. There were some nuggets of truth to it, but in your case, that we could find nothing that tied you to Putin or to Russia or the having the you supposedly had a house next to him. in,
I
in
have it. All right.
Russia.
So I allegedly have a dacha in Sochi, which is
Yeah.
directly next door to Putin's. Interestingly enough, I've never been to Russia. And they were like, really? Well, you were part of the board, right? You were one of three people on the board. It's Trump, Alan Weisselberg, and me for the Miss Universe pageant, Miss Universe organization, which is interesting. All three felons, right? So what's amazing is they said, well, didn't you work on and negotiate part of a deal? I said, no, as a board member, I approved it, just as Trump did, just as Weisselberg did, but I wasn't able to go. Oh, really? Well, why didn't you go? I said, because it was my nephew's bar mitzvah in Florida. By coincidence, I would have gone, but for my nephew's bar mitzvah, which I had to attend. Right?
Well, you got to
And
attend a bar mitzvah. I'm
then
telling
then they turn around and then they say, well, where were you on so and so date? I said, I was in Los Angeles. Oh, yeah. Can you prove it? Sure. How can you prove it? Why don't you ask the baseball coach for the USC Trojans? They go, what? I said, my son is a baseball player. He's a big lefty pitcher, and he is the tryout. They
And he still
actually
should be
went.
playing, damn it. That's another story.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, this sort of ruined that, which is a guilt that I carry so deep in my heart. It breaks my heart because I feel like, I have my two children. I die for my children, and to take away and to shatter a dream that he's had since he was 4 years old. Fuck them. But back to James Comey.
But
I want you to focus in the beginning of the book on the information that you found. See, the reason I bring this all up is because we all know James Comey got indicted yesterday. And I wrote as a Substack, Comey is today's ham sandwich,
absolutely.
which, by the way, I also said was going to happen. When did we do the filming for your documentary, which is soon to
And
come out? A
the
year
doc,
ago?
yeah, it was actually right after Donald Trump came back into office. You and I spoke. We went to New York, sat down, and put you on tape, and great stuff there. And that'll be in the documentary Trump 2 coming soon to a streamer near you. And we spoke a lot about what you thought the next 100 days of Donald Trump would look like. And a lot of people got it right, but you nailed a couple of things really well. And of course, the big thing about Comey being this week's ham sandwich is you were a ham sandwich. And there's something that you pointed out today. I read your Substack, and it's something I've said in a couple of my columns that remains more true than anything else. Donald Trump doesn't give a shit if he gets a conviction in Comey's case. And I've always said, Comey's saying, bring it, like he's in control of it. Let's bring it to court. Let's go. Donald Trump doesn't really care if he gets a conviction. What he cares about is intimidating other people. He cares about shredding up the norms. He cares about revenge for everyone that he feels has slighted him at some point in time. And remember, he still thinks that one of the things he's wanting to indict and has indicted Comey on is the information that Comey provided prior to the 2016 election, which, by the way, helped Donald Trump. So
No, it didn't
Trump,
just help him. It actually gave him the victory.
yeah.
Many people who are political pundits will say that Comey's actions
Many people will
is what
say,
caused
I'm
the
telling you, many people will tell you it's never happened before.
Many smart people will turn around and tell you
And I did.
that was James Comey. He's a bad guy. Bad
Yeah.
guy. He's a dirty cop.
Yeah. And Comey may be a lot of things. Dirty cop. He certainly thought of himself as a Boy Scout. He certainly thought he was standing up for righteousness when he did what he did. But he got played by Trump like everybody else. And for him, he doesn't realize he is like everyone else. And he's not untouchable. But Donald Trump makes the same mistake.
Oh,
Only
Mary,
thing
you
is,
could only imagine, by the way, Mary, when Brian and I would get on the phone, we would basically lock up about 3-4 hours a day as he was bringing me the information that I would use for revenge. And it was very detailed and lengthy, and it encompassed many.
and we had a few
many people.
laughs in the process.
How many people do you think that you spoke to for the production of this book?
That's a good question. I would, I
More than
I call,
100?
oh yeah,
Okay.
I would say a good gross.
Oh yeah.
It was pretty gross.
So I can tell you, out of the 4 hours, at least 25% of it, an hour, was the two of us just doing a multitude of various different imitations. I mean, it was actually, we should have videotaped it because it was funny as shit. But what I really
Yes,
want
indeed,
you,
Buddy Penny. It was indeed. It was certainly was.
what I want you, Guys, Brian, I need you to please be quiet. You're making a complete fool of yourself. What I need you to do for our audience is I need you to really now target straight into what you learned of Comey, the Russia investigation, and me.
Well, I think you just want the bottom line here, right? The bottom line is that they were proceeding with the case against you, whether or not the facts actually proved what they wanted. I think that's the bottom line. And so whatever the facts
I'm
determine,
so sorry. So you're talking about James Comey wanted to see me prosecuted.
I think what the bottom line, what I think I don't think they wanted to leverage you. I think they wanted to provide information and prosecute you to the point that they could leverage you to flip on Trump. That's what I think. And I think there was a miscalculation there, as there was a miscalculation about the information that he released about Hillary Clinton. I don't think that I don't think they were like Trump, trying to manipulate things for their own goods. I think that many people in the Department of Justice, and many of them still to this day, believe that they're on the right side of the cause, that they're for truth, justice, and America. However, if they've got to manipulate things to get that justice, they feel that's still justice. I know it's a subtle difference between Donald, who believes that he can manipulate whatever the facts are for his own benefit, and that's in essence what they're doing, but they're doing it for a bigger cause, and therefore that is more frightening in some regards.
No,
Because
they did it for the cause that they believed in. And
justice,
whether or not we all believe that it's the same cause that we believe in, it's irrelevant. It's absolutely irrelevant. So here's how Brian described it to me during one again of those lengthy calls that half the time, thanks to him, we laughed our asses off, right? Otherwise, I would have probably
Laugh
strangled
or cry
myself.
will be here all week. Try the veal.
Right? So Christopher Steele creates this bullshit. And that was created for the Clinton campaign as opposition research. Okay. Brian, keep going with the story. When that failed, what happened?
Well, when that failed about inventing the information,
No, about the Clinton campaign buying it and using it.
well, what happened was that, from what I recall, and you probably recall it better than I do, what I recall is that they simply took the information that was deemed to be in of little value and created more value to it and stayed with it and tried to use it, although they knew it had been discredited. At the
And
end of the
so,
day,
right. And so when the Clinton campaign rejected the dossier, oh, EG, thank you for subscribing to Brian. He's a good dude. When the Clinton campaign denied acceptance of the opposition research, the dossier,
because
refused to
they
pay
the,
for it.
and the end of the sentence to insert there is they rejected it because they found it unbelievable, and they found it.
Stupid. I think the
Yes.
word was stupid.
Yeah, well, I think the one was a bunch of bullshit. I think
Oh,
that's
even better.
I think
And
that's what the
so,
words were. If I remember my sources correctly, the words I heard was, "This is a bunch of shit." So go
and
ahead.
so what ends up happening, Christopher Steele starts marketing the dossier. And whose hands does it fall into? John McCain. For whatever the reason may be, somehow John McCain ends up with this dossier and they pay
Well,
for it.
as I remember, they shopped it around, and they specifically went to McCain, hoping that they would find a fellow traveler, and they did not find what they wanted out of him either.
Well, he ended up buying it. All
Yeah,
right. And while, according to, I remember the note that you had provided me, he had questions himself
yes,
about the accuracy and the veracity, about the bulk of it, but he believed that Trump had nefarious relations with Putin and Russia, and
yes.
that they were using them. And so he was willing to take the dossier and to further have it investigated.
Yes, and that was the point is that a lot of people to this day believe that Russia, and I'm not saying that Donald Trump is a Russian plant. But if he's not, you couldn't get better out of a plant than what they've gotten out of Donald Trump. So either way, six of one, half dozen of the other, it doesn't really matter. But the concern was that Donald Trump was compromised. The PP tape that everybody talks about. I know at one point in time, the real concern wasn't that Donald Trump urinated on a mattress that once Obama or Biden or somebody Obama had slept in, I think, but it was the fact that there were Russian hookers there with him. But it's the fact that there was some thought and it was never proven. And I have to tell you, all of this is conjecture. But one of the reasons of the concern is that Donald Trump, it wasn't just female hookers that were uh, with him when this took place. So a lot of the consternation and concern were all these nefarious allegations about Donald Trump being tied into Russia and being compromised by Russia, and of course via Jeff Epstein, is the two words that he doesn't want to talk about to this day. Jeff Epstein, he's afraid if he says that name three times, he'll appear out of nowhere like Beetlejuice. So it's still heavy on his mind, and a lot of this goes back to that Steele dossier, like you're talking about.
Yeah. And so he gives it to John McCain. John McCain, coincidentally, gives it to
One coinkadink. to
James
go.
Comey
Yeah.
gives it to James Comey.
Well, he and the McCain people who I talked to had said that it was the proper thing to do, was to take, once we're in possession of this information, turn it over to the DOJ, who's supposed to be an independent operation. They're not now, but at that time was still believed to be, independent, and still had the faith and trust of Republicans and Democrats, and give it to the guy who's supposed to be investigating this stuff, and let him have a go at it. That was their they and look, that is kind of the proper thing to do. I mean, that's what you want. You want them to
But
investigate.
that
If
would be assuming that Comey wasn't James Comey. You and I had a conversation long time ago where I said to you, if you ask most people, name three directors of the FBI, and not current ones, all right, name them. And most people can. They'll say J. Edgar Hoover, because
yeah,
everybody knows J. Edgar Hoover. What James Comey was looking to do was to have a legacy where everybody remembered his name. And so, as I said, even in my Substack, he walked the halls, like an overgrown Boy Scout with a badge, pretending to be a politician. It's what angered Trump the most about him. But James Comey then read the dossier and never spoke to anybody. They decided to open up an investigation. But the investigation, based upon the information you provided me, was that they needed to put me and box me into a corner. That they were adamant that Trump had relations with Russia, with Putin, and that by come hell or high water, they were going to figure it out, even if it meant killing me.
I think in the beginning, when they got that information, somebody went, "Yay, we finally got the stuff we need on Trump. This is it." And as they got into it, they found out that it was full of shit, but like I said at the beginning, there's a nugget of truth in everything. So they took that nugget of truth, whatever it was, whatever they could find, and decided that they would try to go about using you as leverage to pull out whatever else there was true. So in that, and that's not, unfortunately, as you and I've discussed many times, that's not unusual with the FBI. What they did with you that was unusual, what at least what I thought, is that they proceeded down that path, and at some point in time, the investigators crossed a line where they knew that what they had against you was not worth prosecuting, but they were hoping against hope to get you to flip on Don to provide information that you did not have. And they thought you had it. And that was why they did what they did. They didn't, and now Comey may have had his personal reasons for doing it. I don't think you're wrong in pointing those out. But I think the systemic reason was, this is a bad guy. We're going to flip him. We're going after a bigger bad guy. It's how they work drug dealers. Unfortunately, Donald Trump isn't just a drug dealer. Donald Trump, blows up Venezuelan boats for no reason. Donald Trump is the world's worst bully, and they underestimated him and overestimated you. They thought that you had pull with Don, and you were as close to Donald Trump as anyone, but you turned on him for the very reasons that they said they were going after you, because of what you thought was right and what you thought Donald Trump had done wrong. And rather than working with you, they worked they they tried to bury you. And after you were in prison, it wasn't Comey that did this. It was Bill Barr who
Sure.
really,
But before we even get to
yeah.
that, because today's episode, I want to dedicate it to James Comey, because so many people in my feed are like, Cohen, what's wrong with you? Are you back protecting Trump? I used to think you were a good guy. Just because you don't like the opinion that I have, I'm not here in order to in order to,
Well,
you know,
to your point there, what kills me about this goes to the left and to the right, and I'm not partisan. I don't really give a shit. I have angered every president I've ever covered. I've pissed off every press secretary I've ever covered. I right, left, middle, don't matter. I'm there to call truth to power and to present facts. What people do today that bothers me, we're so divisive that if you don't agree with someone 100%, then you're automatically on the other side of the aisle.
right.
And that's not the case. I can call, I said, and I'll maintain this. The worst communication staff I ever worked with in the White House was Donald Trump's first administration. Then during Biden's administration, believe it or not, they were worse. So I called them out. I said they screwed the pooch. Joe Biden did some things that were worthy when he was president, and they absolutely screwed the pooch on communicating. Worst communication staff I ever worked with until the current Trump administration. And people got really
And
pissed
yeah,
at me.
Caroline Levitt is really a whole level above anything. But
Well, I call her a presidential pep secretary. She's not a press secretary. Just give her a set of
I,
pom poms and the cheerleader's skirt. Let her stand up there at the podium and go, rah, rah, rah. Donnie's great. We love
I
him. He
call
squirts
I call
rainbows
her
out of his ass. Yay.
I call her bullshit Barbie.
Yeah,
Um,
that's another good one.
so, oh, thank you very much. So here's the thing. After Comey did what he did and they realized that they didn't have the goods, he turned it over to Andrew Weissman. And I couldn't understand why. And Andrew Weissman is the guy that you see on CNN all the time. You know, the guy that pretends to be
A
holier
dapper
than
guy. He's very dapper, isn't he?
ugh. And he tries to be so self-righteous and he's so he's just so moral. He then takes the file because the FBI had nothing. They had nothing. Or as Robert De Niro would say in the movie, you got nothing, nothing. And so what does he do? He passes it along to Jeffrey Berman, the head of the Southern District of New York Criminal Division. Now, Jeffrey Berman had some sort of a conflict, and so he recuses himself and allegedly turns the case over to Robert Kazami.
Yeah, that
Right.
was an interesting move.
It sure was, considering Bill Barr was continuing to speak to Jeffrey Berman during the entire case. Well, I said either you're recused or you're not. And in fact, Jeffrey Berman, that piece of shit, should have
Tell us what you
disclosed
really think. Don't hold back, Michael. Come on.
should have disclosed it to the court, should have disclosed it to my lawyer that he was being pressured by Bill Barr, by the Department of Justice, by the Attorney fucking General.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't going to do that. He was going to wait till when? He
Well,
decides to put out a book.
and then and then remanding you back to prison
That's
was
a whole second. That's a
that's
whole separate. That's a
yeah,
whole
that
separate
whole
Bill
separate
Barr.
issue. I mean, what they did to you there was, by and large, they were able to do that because of what had happened to you before. But that to me was the absolute worst I've ever seen in American jurisprudence. And I'm not really, I'm not, this isn't hyperbole. I mean, to put you back into prison and to put you in the conditions that they put you in at that point in time, I'm pretty sure Donnie and Bill Barr wanted you dead, and they were ready
Why
to
don't you
put you.
tell everybody what you heard that was said a week before? I was remanded.
Oh, no, God, you say you've got that down. That I'll leave you to say it.
No, God, come on. I want people to hear what they said to you.
Well, I don't remember the exact words, but I remember the intimation behind it was they were going to go after you. They didn't care, and they were going to throw your ass back in jail. And didn't
Exactly. That. Don't
it,
worry.
it,
He'll be back in prison in a week.
yes, they did not care about your rights, and specifically the First Amendment rights that Donald Trump, to this day, says he is a champion of. It's obvious through his actions and through Barr's actions. And Barr, by the way, is one of the most reprehensible people I've ever spent time in an elevator with. And I cannot for the life of me understand how that guy is able to operate. And he even separated himself from Donald. But the fact of the matter is, by sending you back to prison, and for people who don't know, I mean, I remember speaking to people who were worried about you, who worked in the prison system. A couple of people in particular. They put you in a position in a heated environment with a broken sink and flies and no air conditioning in a Quonset hut, basically, where they didn't really give a shit whether you survived or not. In fact, they would have been happy had you not. So it's, to me, to me, that was the worst injustice of the whole thing.
And
You,
so while I sat there last night with my wife, we were having dinner, and I turned the television on, and my wife looks at me and she goes, "You okay?" We were watching as they were making the breaking news about the indictment. And of course, it's a trigger. So I started taking notes in my cell phone, which I do, about what I was going to write in my Substack. In fact, I started writing my Substack this morning. My wife is very sweet. 31 years we're married. And
Mazel tov, congratulations.
yeah, she's the best. And I started taking my notes in order to put together my Substack of the morning. And when I finished it, I said, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to turn around and almost question why I'm writing what I'm writing. And
Well,
I'm writing it just so you all understand, because what I'm writing is factually accurate. Just because Trump may be right about the Russia hoax, about James Comey, doesn't mean I agree with, I don't know, his immigration policy or the decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, or the the decision not to meet with Democrats and allow the government to shut down, or any of the other multitude of things
yeah, I
that I
get
have
you.
issues with.
A broke watch is still right twice a day. RFK can sit there and say, "Hey, we need to be a healthier nation." I agree with that.
By the way, I do
Processed
too.
food's a bad thing. But when you talk about autism and vaccines, you're a fucking lunatic. Donald Trump can come out and everything he does just violates my very understanding of what it means to be a human being and to have empathy for other people. And yet, when he said, "Hey, if you quit buying oil from Russia, you might bring them to their knees quicker," he wasn't wrong about that.
He's right. He's
He's
right. And all of a sudden, if I turn around and I say, I agree with him on that, I agree that our country should have secure borders. By the way, so a guy once says to me, he lives out in Long Island, says to me, "How could you turn around and make a statement like that?" I didn't know this fucking guy from a hole in the wall. I was out in Long Island, seeing my brother. We were having lunch out there, and the guy comes over because he feels like he's entitled to. And he says to me, "How could you make a statement like that?" I said, "You live out here?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "You got a fence around your house?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Why?" So he goes, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, do you have the fence because you're identifying your property? You're delineating your property line." "Yeah, so?" "Well, isn't that what a border is?"
Well, here, and I'll extend that further. There have been every president beginning with Reagan, believed in a pathway to citizenship, but believed in a secure border. And this is what brought me to DC, by the way. In 1985, they passed something called the Simpson-Mazzoli Act. Prior to the Simpson-Mazzoli Act, it was illegal to, you had to come across legally, but it wasn't illegal to hire the people who came across illegally. What happened with the Simpson-Mazzoli Act is they made it illegal and made it possible to prosecute the companies that hang up the for sale signs and the help wanted signs, and to go after the largest employers of illegal immigration. Uh, and they never done it. In 40 years, none of these people have ever been prosecuted. Yeah, Alan Simpson from Wyoming and Romano Mazzoli from Louisville, Kentucky, and that's why I got into it. I was covering it because Mazzoli was our representative in Louisville, and unfortunately, Mitch McConnell was our one of our guys from Louisville.
Right.
But at the end of the day, that's why if you believe in a sound border, as Donald Trump says he does, where's the prosecution of the people, the large companies that are hiring illegal immigrants? That you don't get that. What you're getting now is, AI replacing a lot of those workers, and they're throwing people out of work in the United States because they want, and bringing back low wage construction and stuff like that, because they know that Americans are going to be out of work, and that's what they want us to do. So it's good Lord, it is simply the fact that the oligarchs still keep winning for themselves and still keep screwing the little guy. And that's so, that's a real deep issue that people don't want to dive into. They just want to go, hey, lock up the people coming across the border. Well, you can go back to Smedley Butler, the second most decorated Marine ever in the history of the United States, who wrote a book, War is a Racket, and this was in the late 1920s, who said that we were waging war. We created the conditions in Southern and Central America that drive these people to the United States. We created the job market, and it was war for Dole Pineapple, as he said it, and the other, entities that had a lot of money. And Donald Trump is merely a part of it. So he's completely disingenuous. He doesn't recognize the border. He doesn't recognize the fence. He's supporting the guy that's letting them dig under the fence and put a gate in your backyard. Come on in. Let's
Right. Meanwhile, I want to sort of break down my Substack post for the
Oh,
day.
good post.
All
Yes,
right.
I really
Yeah.
like it.
Which again, Comey is today's ham sandwich, because I've always referred to myself as the ham sandwich as a
Yes.
result of McCain and Comey and Weissman, all the way then to Jeffrey Berman, and then to Robert Kazami. And I
See, I
started
think
out.
those last two were directly responsible. I think Comey and McCain aided and abetted it, but
But they
I think
started it. They
yeah, they
started.
started it and then shuffled it off somewhere else, and then those guys could have dropped it and chose not to. And when they proceeded, knowing full well that it was bullshit, they became the proximate men responsible for it. James Comey's going to find out the hard way that he is going to be treated much like you were.
Amen to that. That's the point. That's exactly the point of my Substack today. James Comey thinks he's in control. He's not. If my own experience has taught me anything, it's this. The old adage is true. You can indict a ham sandwich. And today, James Comey is the ham sandwich.
Yeah.
He may not like the comparison, but the facts don't lie. Many will say it's not right, not fair, not justified. They'll paint him as a martyr, the straight shooter, the Boy Scout. Spare me. Comey built his entire brand on being the solemn guardian of American integrity, the tall moral compass of righteousness. And now he wants us to believe that he isn't afraid, that he welcomes trial. Please, those are the last words of a man who doesn't yet realize the quicksand he's already sinking in.
Yeah, he
go on.
I mean, the point that is really poignant about this, the part that you have to understand more than anything else, is that Donald Trump does not give a shit if he gets a conviction. He knows damn well he probably won't. But what he wants to do is to
Yeah, I think he
scare the.
will.
I don't think he will. I don't
I'm
think there's
actually
a.
pretty sure he will.
You know what? You know better than I, but I think he doesn't care what he wants.
That's also
What
true.
what he wants and what he demands is fealty, and he's going to make sure that the same way that he did by suing CBS, the same way he did by going after Jimmy Kimmel, is to and the way he's going after donors, Democratic donors, is to,
ABC, he went after law firms. He's gone
yes,
after
going after,
plenty. He
it's
went
to
after me
make
for
sure.
500 million.
Yes, it's to make sure that he decimates the opposition, that he gets fealty, and people are afraid to stand up to him. And I, for one, having defeated that SOB in court 3 times, I'm telling you, stand up to the bully. And so I applaud Comey for standing up to him, but I agree with you. I don't think he has a clue as to what's coming his way.
No idea. So then I follow through and I say, I know the script because I lived it. In the early days, you tell yourself, this is all a mistake. Your lawyers, especially the expensive one, say that you're fine. We've got this. They whisper, as if confidence alone is a legal defense. That's what my lawyers told me. But then
If
comes the arraignment. And suddenly, the illusion cracks. The indictment transforms from a piece of paper into a death sentence for your reputation, your career, and your peace of mind. That is when the nightmare begins. And trust me, it doesn't end quickly.
No, and it's what you look, having spent some time in prison myself trying to protect sources, the most the, the most dehumanizing part of this is when they put you in jail, and the things that you go through just walking into a cell. If that happens to Comey, which is I Trump would be happy if it did.
Yeah.
That is something that you can't prepare for. I don't care how many times you've herded cases into court. It's quite different when you're on the receiving end of that.
Amen to that. I continue by saying the pundits are already misreading this moment, just like they misread Trump in 2016 and now again in the second presidency. They still cling to the fantasy that Trump cannot possibly get away with this. They laugh, they smirk, they call it an overreach. Wrong. Trump doesn't overreach. Listen to this one, Brian. He resets the boundaries. What they call outrageous, he calls Tuesday. And while they write think pieces about norms and precedents, Trump rips those norms into confetti and he scatters them like ticker tape at one of his rallies. You
Which
see,
he
Comey's
which he doesn't
indictment.
have much of anymore because he's mentally compromised. But I mean that guy is. But you're right, and the thing is again what he's doing. We still haven't. There are people who believe. Honestly, it frustrates the living crap out of me that people believe we're approaching a constitutional crisis. We are approaching fascism. We're approaching despotism. That's bullshit. That's in our rearview mirror. Folks, we're right in the middle of it. This is the middle of it. And as I told you yesterday, and as I remind everyone, Trump's own niece, Mary Trump, says there is no worst with Donald. Every day is worse. And every day is worse with this guy. We're flat smack in the middle of despotism. Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about norms. Terry, if he could have, he turned the UN into a rally. That was the most inappropriate, unprofessional, comical. He thought he was Don Rickles standing up doing a roast as he stood in the middle of the United Nations. He has no care in the world for anything approaching normal political discourse. So yes, he's shredding it for Comey. He will shred it, and by doing so, again, the end game for Donald is to scare the shit out of people so they do not stand up against him. That's
Yeah,
all he
and again,
wants.
so to those of you that are asking what it is I'm reading from, it's from my Substack of today. Comey is today's ham sandwich. I then continue and I say, Comey's indictment, it's not just about Comey. It is a blueprint for how Trump wields power when no guardrails remain. That is what Brian's documentary touches upon.
Yes. That's that's a great setup. Yes, and that's what we did. We took a look at the week up to the inauguration and people who professed their love for Donald and why they did so, and then compared what they thought was going to happen to what has actually happened since Donald Trump has come into office. And if you believe that this is anywhere near normal, if you think this is anywhere near what the United States stands for, just look at the pictures, listen to the words, and watch yourself. And imagine for one moment that any other president has said or done what Donald Trump has said or done. If Joe Biden had attempted any of this, people would be shitting themselves blue. But there are, for
On both
some
sides
reason,
of the aisle, by the way.
yes,
Not
on
on one
both
side,
sides of
on
the
both
aisle.
sides.
Yes.
So I go further and I say that the timeline says it all. Trump demanded prosecution. DOJ resisted. Trump fired the prosecutor, installed a loyalist. And days later, like magic, Comey was indicted. That's not due process. That's the mob boss model of government. I've spent years watching Trump run that play in business. Loyalty is rewarded, and this is what Brian is saying. Disloyalty is punished, and enemies are crushed publicly as a warning to others. And now, Comey is the warning.
Yeah, he's the canary in the coal mine. But there have been so many other canaries in this coal mine that people have ignored. They're bringing out dead canaries, and people are going, it's safe. Let's go on in. And I'm going, folks, that's when people, what angers me, all right, I feel anger for you and I feel it for me because in the first Trump administration, I keep getting people telling me today, if somebody had only let us know, why wasn't there better reporting? Why didn't a reporter come forward? Jesus Christ, I took the bastard to court 3 times. I was every day in that White House reporting on what the shit it was going on. And I wasn't the only one. Jim Acosta, April Ryan, Jonathan Karl, the people from Reuters. I mean, good Lord, Jeff Mason, Steve Holland, the AP, there were people there that were pushing back against Donald. And everybody kept saying, oh, that's okay. That's not that big a deal. He's just saying these things. He's not going to do them. And I could write some of the articles I wrote 8 years ago when he first came into office. I could rewrite today and merely change the names. Donald Trump never cares about anyone but himself. You are absolutely right. It's fealty he requires and loyalty he rewards, and any disassociation from him other than complete fealty, he will snap back against.
You
He
know, the
remains
funny thing is when Brian and I were speaking, and each and every time he would come back, because again, he interviewed over 100 people in order to for the book Revenge. And I got to tell you, um, he was as angry, if not angrier, at the time than even I. Hard to imagine. This can't be happening. I couldn't believe it when I was speaking to. Go ahead. I mean, tell them the things that you would say to me when we would start this the
well,
conversation for so I could write and so on.
well, some of the things that still strike me to this day. The president of the United States doesn't give a shit about anybody but the president of the United States. And the idea of a justice system, particularly under Bill Barr, was an injustice system. He talks about weaponization of the DOJ today. It was Donald Trump who weaponized the DOJ. And you were the first political prisoner in the history of the United States that I've ever met. And I felt like, and I felt like I was a bit of a political prisoner at the state and local level because I would not give up a source. But this is not supposed to happen in the United States. There's this wonderful thing called the First Amendment that is supposed to protect
Right.
us. And it didn't. And it hasn't. And so George Carlin is right. The thing that angers me about it is that we don't have rights in this country. We have a set of privileges. The idea that, and they've been taken away. So the freedom of choice is a farce. Freedom of speech, a farce. All the corporate media is owned and operated by 5 people, by 5 companies today. 5. Much like the consolidation of the media has occurred, like the consolidation of the oil companies and the consolidation of everything else in the pharmaceutical companies. And soon it will be 4 companies that own 90% of what you see, read, or hear. Freedom of choice, freedom of speech, you have the
Hey,
illusion
folks,
of
do me a
those.
favor, please keep smashing those red hearts. Please keep sharing this, because the more people that hear this, the more that they will understand seriously the issues that right now are at our doorstep, and all the pundits that you hear. Here, let me say it to you this way, because I go on and I say his mistake, and I'm talking about Comey, was underestimating Trump. He
True.
believed the institutions were stronger than Trump's will. He thought the Department of Justice was still an independent agency. He assumed judges and prosecutors would stand on principle. Wrong again. Those guardrails are gone. That's what Brian was just saying. Those guardrails are gone. This is Trump's DOJ now, staffed with loyalists like Pam Bondi, who understand that their job is not justice, but retribution. And I also want to kill the myth of Comey as the untouchable Boy Scout. And understand, this is what I have learned from my time, from my experience, that the DOJ has the file. Every slip, every inconsistency, every questionable choice. And with Trump in control, every shred of it will be sharpened into a weapon. Courtrooms don't care about your reputation, they care about perception. And Trump has mastered the art of poisoning perception until truth is unrecognizable.
Yeah. And well, because Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about truth. He doesn't care about facts. He cares about destroying the truth and destroying the facts to imprint his idea of reality on the masses. That's the ultimate grift, to convince people that what is not factual is. And to me, that is the worst part of Donald Trump. The idea that disinformation and chaos reigns. I call it chaos in a blender. And that's what Donald Trump is. But I still firmly believe that he cannot harness the chaos that he rode into office. And I think I'm watching him this time around breaking down and falling apart in ways that I didn't see him in the first administration. But that doesn't mean that the Trump movement is dead. The people that now hold his leash are the ones that you have to worry about. And that includes Stephen Miller. That includes Pam Bondi. That
Russ
includes
Vought.
Kash Patel. Includes Robert F. Kennedy. That includes a lot of other people, including his his former caddy, who now has a spot in the administration. So it's frightening what Donald Trump has enabled, and it's not going to go away with the end of Donald Trump.
So I go on and I say, here's the brutal reality. Trump doesn't even need a conviction. This is what Brian was talking about. So
Yeah,
please, folks, keep smashing the hearts, keep sharing this. This is the point. Trump doesn't even need a conviction. The process is the punishment. The mugshots, the headlines, the endless court dates. This isn't about justice. It's about humiliation. Once you're indicted, your life is no longer yours. You're trapped in a legal grinder that eats your time, your money, your dignity. And Trump is gleefully feeding Comey into that machine just to
yeah,
watch him squirm. And here's the funny thing, the pundits, and that's why sometimes it's so hard to watch television, whether it's mainstream or cable news.
it
The
is.
pundits insist. They insist you listen to these idiots that this will backfire, that the courts will stop him, that justice will prevail. They sound exactly like my lawyers once did. Don't worry, Michael, it'll be fine. Well, it wasn't fine. I ended up in prison, in solitary, in the shattering of my life. And I hadn't even been the head of the FBI. Imagine what Trump has planned for the man that he blamed for unleashing the Russia probe.
And by the way, the man who also got him in office, as you said, that's what's funny about it. That's what's the irony involved in it. But to your point, it's for those, it bothers me, it angers me that people still don't get this, that they still don't understand how bad it is. The legal system got warped long ago, but Donald Trump has used it to his own ends and will continue to do so as long as he draws breath. And watching my friends and so-called colleagues and pundits on TV just buying into this bullshit that he can't go this way. He was not going to do that. That won't happen. I'm just going, where have you been for the last freaking 12 years? What are you talking about? What lunacy do you buy into that you believe that Donald Trump has a floor or a guardrail? He does not. And the bottom line, all of what's driving a lot of this, Donald Trump needs to exercise total control. But one of the reasons why he needs to exercise total control is because he's scared shitless of those two words, Jeff Epstein. And if he can possibly keep people from talking about it and scare people into submission, then maybe he won't have to face whatever's in those files that scares the living shit out of him. And Donald Trump will do this until the day he dies. And I firmly believe that he will try to run for a third term if he's alive. I firmly believe that Donald Trump wants to be held in state in that frickin' ballroom that he's trying to build, and his family will charge $1,000 a head to see him lying in state for as long as they can get away with having him lie in state and grift the American public off of more money. Donald Trump isn't going anywhere that Donald Trump doesn't want to go right now, and that's the sad truth.
Amen. Meanwhile, I go on to say that the writing is on the wall. Comey isn't the last. This is something I talked
Yeah,
about on your documentary that's going to
yeah.
be coming out, Trump 2.0. Trump has already set his sights on others. We hear it all the time. Letitia James, George Soros, Adam Shifty Schiff, to name just a few.
Well,
Even
and
even the press itself.
yes,
One
and,
by one, the names of the enemies list are being crossed off. And with each move, the DOJ becomes less a pillar of justice and more a personal weapon in Trump's arsenal. This is
I
not about the rule of law anymore. This is about the rule of Trump.
Yep. And as you said in the documentary, what will happen, Brian, if 8 months down the line, a year down the line, Trump is successful in doing what he's doing, then he will have supplanted the rule of law and the Constitution. And that's exactly what he's done. And to your point also about the press, the weekend before the election, I was in Detroit speaking before a convention of Lebanese and Arab Americans. And I was staying in the same hotel that Donald was, and I met some of Donald's people as he walked upstairs to go into his room. He saw me and didn't want to talk to me. I don't know why.
I
And
do.
so I I'm talking I'm talking to a couple of his people. And I said, "So when he gets back in, are you you throwing me in prison? Is that what's going to happen?" And they said, and I'll never forget these words, "Don't worry, Brian, you're low down on the list." And I said, "You know, it doesn't bother me. I'm not taking solace in being low on the list. What bothers me is that you just admitted there's a list,
Yeah, there is a list.
and
Yep.
that's and I'm on it." But it bothers me that they think it's okay. Don't worry, it'll be a long time before he gets to you.
And
Well,
so the
how?
reason that, and just to bring it to a conclusion here. So here's my prediction, because Brian, you'll know as well as anybody, I'm like 9 out of 10 on my predictions so far, including
You're doing
about a
pretty
year
good. I'll give
ago.
you that.
Yeah. Here's my prediction. And I've been saying this long before the ink dried on Comey's indictment. It doesn't end well for him. Why? Because the deck is stacked. The system is corrupted, and the trial will be theater scripted by Trump himself. Comey can pretend that he's fearless, but when the spotlight turns harsh and the evidence is twisted into a noose, he'll discover the truth. And the truth is that he's not in control. He is the ham sandwich. And Trump, he's coming to the table hungry.
Yeah. Well, he's oh, you know, I go back to Donald Trump is always hungry. And I go back to Tombstone, the movie, great movie, but there's a great line in there that describes Donald Trump so very well. And I use that in my speaking of plugging an article in Salon today. I use this very damn line because, and I want to pull it up so I get it right. But this is what Doc Holliday says to Wyatt Earp. So it's Val Kilmer speaking to Kurt Russell about Johnny Ringo, and he says, "What makes Johnny Ringo work? What? How does Johnny Ringo work? What does a man like him think?" And he turns and looks at Wyatt Earp and he says, "A man like Johnny Ringo has a big hole in him. He can never kill enough, steal enough, rob enough, or do anything enough to feed that hunger, to fill that hole." And that's Donald Trump. He says, "Well, why?" And he goes, "He wants revenge. And revenge for what? Revenge for being born." Donald Trump is on a revenge tour and has been on one his entire life. Donald Trump cannot fill that hole inside of himself with anything, and he's going to try until the day he dies by torturing everyone else alive for the simple fact that Donald Trump was born. And I can't put it any better than that. He's got a
One
great
of the
big
things that's
hole.
very interesting, I just literally got a notification. Um, I'm going to be on MSNBC tomorrow night at 6 p.m. because they want to talk about exactly this. This exact topic is what they want to talk about. And
And
one of
it's
the
a
reasons that I wrote the book Revenge, one of the reasons that I have Brian here in order to validate the information, where it came from, and so on, is simply because, and I had been, all heard me say this a million times, I never wanted another American to experience what I experienced. I don't want another American to feel the pain that I go to sleep with, I wake up with, I live with every single day. I don't want any American with children to have to look at their children in their eyes and turn around and see the pain that they're carrying because of you. It's fucking torture. It's
yeah,
mental, physical, and emotional torture. And so I've been fighting for God knows how long now to make sure that this doesn't happen again. I talk about yesterday in the note that I put into Substack, 13 months, 18 months of home confinement, another 36 months of supervised release, 51 days of solitary confinement. It's torture. So I sit here and I try to express to each of you, and please keep smashing the heart, the share. Again, the Chiron up type that has both my name and Brian's name. If you are a subscriber of mine, please subscribe to Brian J. Karem. And if you're a Brian Karem subscriber, all three of you, please make sure that you subscribe to me.
I'm up to 4. Come on, what are you kidding me? It's a vast audience.
I turn around and I say, I understand that people get angry at me when I say something that isn't a gut punch to Trump. And I'm trying to explain to each and every one of you that you don't need to gut punch him on everything. You don't need to. I can't stand the fact that he federalized and weaponized the police, on our National Guard. I can't believe that he pardoned 1,500 January 6th insurrectionists. Tell you a quick story. Brian, myself, Harry Dunn, Eric Swalwell, we were in Chicago together, having a great time. And I remember just Harry and I walking afterwards, and I said to him, How are you holding up? And I've had Harry on the Substack. I've had him on, as I have Brian, who's going to be on my Monday's Mea Culpa podcast. So make sure you check it. It's not only is it funny as hell, it's incredibly insightful. But Harry turned around and he talked about the PTSD that he has and the trigger that he has. Now, mind you, he's like 6'6", 300 pounds. So most people look at him and you say, what could trigger a guy that size?
I know damn well what triggers him. I was there.
Cruelty is
Yeah.
what triggers him.
You know, what that day, to listen to Donald Trump talk about the far left being violent pisses me off beyond belief because I was there on January 6th. I witnessed it. I was threatened by them. I remember, and everyone's seen that picture of, and Harry, I saw that day. I remember circling around, and when I got to where I thought I was safe for a few minutes, everyone's seen that picture of them people of the, J6ers crawling up the wall. I was standing right there. I said, "Hey, morons. There's steps on either side. You don't have to crawl up the wall. Somebody's going to fall and break their neck." And sure enough, someone fell. And the next thing you know, there are 8 people turning around blaming me when I was trying to warn them to be safe. I've got 8 of them coming at me and threatening me. And I held up my very press pass that Donald Trump tried to take away from me on 3 occasions. And I held it up and I said, "Wait a minute. I'm not like the rest of the media. I'm with Playboy." And they stopped, Michael, stopped right in their tracks. And one of them looked at me and said, "Can you get me into the mansion?" I said, "Sure, not a problem, anytime." And they go, "Okay, fellas, nothing to see here." And they turned around and left. And it was, to me, I still have I remember watching people getting the shit beat out of them. I remember watching people jabbing at a cop with like a flagpole, and I've witnessed that with my own eyes. I was there, and for people to come back and tell me afterward that I didn't see that it didn't happen, that it was mostly, and they've seen video of people marching peacefully. I remind them, you didn't indict the Manson family for walking up to the mansion. You indicted them for the killing spree that took a brief amount of time. That's why they were indicted. So quit showing me pictures of people walking up to the Capitol. It means dick. I was there. I witnessed it. Harry witnessed it. It was the destruction. If you want to put a date of death, a toe tag on the United States, that's the day, and will always remain so.
Amen to that. And, like I said to Harry, it never goes away.
No.
Right? You just try to learn to live with it. And so, to like the 1,000 people that are with us here, first, I'm a little bit disappointed as we're on our way to like 70,000 subscribers. Do me a favor, please help me to grow this community. Share this with a family member, a friend, a neighbor, a colleague, with your postman for all I care. Because if we don't build this community, and I mean it, we have 1 year together to build this. 1 year.
Before the midterms.
Amen. And one of the things that I want each and every one of you to do is, as you are scrolling, whether it's here on Substack or Blue Sky or Threads or even on X, and you see somebody who comments about my post, don't let him get away with it. You now know the fact. You now understand Comey is no Boy Scout. Comey is actually a bad guy. And I'm going to tell you what I truly believe. I truly believe it. As Trump controls the DOJ and all levers of power now, they have access to every single email, every single text message, every communication that James Comey had with anyone and everyone about the Steele dossier, about the Russia hoax, about me, about Donald Trump, and they will find the communications that prove exactly what they're saying. And they will end up holding him accountable. And it's amazing the way that when I say that, people get so angry at me as if I should now not speak truth, that I should turn around and I should curb myself simply because this sounds like it's a benefit to Trump. It is not. It is a benefit. It is truth about the system. Brian?
Yeah, no, I just got I just got a text from someone saying, "Thank you for pointing this out on his show, your show. And by the way, James Comey is he's not a Boy Scout, but they think that he will be found guilty." I will wait to see if he is found guilty, but I'll tell you this much. Donald Trump doesn't care. Again, at the end of the day, you and I agree on this. Donald Trump wants complete fealty, and if he can use Comey to do it, he will. And if Comey ends up in prison, well, that's a win-win for Donald Trump.
Yeah. Yeah. He's going to make him suffer. And he's got all the levers of power within which to do it. But I think the suffering goes even further. I am certain that it's not just Comey. You see, Brian, do you remember when you and I were talking, and afterwards I continuously, from the book all the way even before to even today, I'm like on top of the mountain. I'm like Moses on top of the mountain, screaming down to the people.
Hey, your beard doesn't look like Moses. I knew Moses. You look scruffy, but you don't have the beard. The white
Yeah,
hair,
well, that's true. The hair is getting there. So,
yeah.
so I'm sitting there and I'm saying to them, these are the dangers. When Donald Trump tells you what he intends to do, don't accept it as just bluster, hyperbole, and so on. When someone tells you what they intend to do,
Believe
believe
them.
them. Amen.
Yeah,
Brian.
believe Donald Trump. When he tells you he's coming after you, he is. When they told me there's a list, I believe it. Donald Trump lies about a lot of things, but what Donald Trump never lies about is his motives for revenge. He wants to make people suffer, like he did with you, like he's tried to do with all of us, and he will continue to do. I maintain that Donald Trump would burn down the country to rule over the embers. That's all he cares about.
Yeah. Well, Brian, take us out. Remind everybody where you're at. It's Brian J. Karem right here on Substack. Go ahead. He is a docu
It's
coming out.
Yep, Reporter's Notebook on Substack. You can catch me on Salon. The new column is out today. Still have one foot in the corporate media world, and the name of the documentary is called Trump 2. Yeah, that's coming out. And streamers, I believe Midas Touch is going to help us distribute that. And then we have also the name of the book is called Free the Press. It's in its third printing. For those who want to know we can make the press better, I kind of walk us through that guide because we need a strong, vibrant press, and we don't have it today, folks. And unfortunately, it's only getting worse under Donald J. Trump. So I thank you for having me, Michael. It's always a pleasure being with you, brother.
Well, it's always great to see you and speak to you. I'll be seeing you in D.C. and here in New York as well. Um, Short of that, thank you, my brother, for joining. Thank you for helping to educate our audience. It's extremely, extremely important.
Yeah, and these are important issues. And Michael, you are on the right side of this. And take solace in that, brother. Keep up the good fight as we all should. And please, everyone, the biggest election coming up in your life is always the next one. Don't just vote, volunteer, take old people to the polls, be involved, be a precinct captain. You have to vote. You cannot turn out just 60% of the vote next time. Don't be intimidated by Donald Trump or the MAGA end of that party. Vote. and get everyone out there. 75% voter turnout is what we need. Get out there and vote.
Amen to that. Thank you, my brother, and I will speak to you later.
Later, brother.
Thank you. So thank you to each and every one of you for joining us. I am going to later tonight. Um, I'll be sending out a note. I'm going to be doing a paid subscriber only Q&A. We're going to do that as we did last week. Have a lot of fun. I'm going to answer your questions. Have them written down. Be prepared to come up so that you join us here as the way Brian just did. Thank you for everybody. Again, if you subscribe to me, please subscribe to Brian Karem. If you're a Brian Karem subscriber, please subscribe to me. If you could become a paid subscriber, it goes a long way. And most importantly, if in fact you want a copy of your limited edition, make sure that you DM me and I'll tell you how you can get yours. Thank you to each and every one of you. And again, to the paid subscribers, I'll be seeing you in a couple of hours.